Greetings, Mazzy's here, and I was out of town for a few days doing some work. I'm back home in Seattle, and I'm going to show you some of my lounge kind of bachelor pad music collection. And it's a series of little flip albums I have here on a little flip rack that I like, that are that kind of bachelor pad cover, either the sound or the covers. They're not all in that exact genre, but I just keep these kind of separate because I think it's cool. But while we're playing, I'm going to play volume 3 of Martin Denny's Exotica. I love these records. So we'll put that on in the background. We're upstairs now in my main room. I have, maybe another time I'll show you, another time I'll show you my system. I got some new B&W 702S speakers this past year, and we'll get into that another time. It's kind of schmaltzy stuff, but I love it. Anyway, here you go. Here's some covers. This is The Immortal Ladies. Look at this cover by the Melacarino Orchestra, conducted by George Belletrino. This is one of those records I just bought for the cover. I think that's really kind of a sexy, fun cover. Now, Chet Atkins obviously is not lounge music, but this is an amazing record. And look at this cover too. Chet Atkins in Hollywood. This had 2 different covers. This is the more provocative one, and it's a really, really great record. If you don't know Chet Atkins, one of the best guitar players ever, passed away. Kind of a country sound, played a country gentleman quite a bit, but one of my favorite covers. Ernie Freeman, The Stripper. I'm not going to say much about these. I think in most cases the covers sort of say it themselves. Now, Les Baxter is one of the great lounge, kind of during the early 60s, mid-60s. A lot of that bachelor pad music, a lot of the Exotica, Hawaiian, kind of the Martin Denny thing, but Les Baxter was another one. This is my all-time favorite cover of his. Very classic photograph in the art world, called La Femme by Les Baxter. Great album and a beautiful, isn't that a beautiful record cover? Look at that photography. Anyway, I just thought this was a great one. Columbia Stereophonic Demonstration record. I really like that 50s, 60s modern design. I'm going to skip a few. Keely Smith, I think I talked about her on one of my earlier videos about Beatle covers. She and Louis Prima played in Vegas a lot. Great, great singer. Beautiful cover. And here, Speak of the Devils, or Louis Prima and Keely Smith. Oh, this is actually a great album. The Wildest Show at Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, Louis Prima and Keely Smith. Very great, fun music. Bought this one again just for the cover. The Zodiac Suite. Intriguing instrumental music by Norrie Paramore's String Orchestra. So again, very schmaltzy, soundtracky, ambient music. Not for everyone. Look at this guy. Look at this conductor, how hip he looks. Great. Anyway, come on, you can't beat a cover like that, right? Another one of my favorite, Yma Sumac. She has something like 4 or 5 octaves she can sing. These are great records if you're into some wild shit. Check them out. Google Yma Sumac. She's been in a lot of movies of the late 50s. And then there's always Henry Mancini. Great soundtrack. You probably know him for writing the Pink Panther theme. But obviously Peter Gunn is one of his more favorite pieces. Again, a cover I love. I love this kind of, this album collection. Most of these records you can find pretty cheap too. But the RCA Victor ones, they sound great if they're not all chewed up. Another volume of Peter Gunn. Mr. Lucky, again, one of my favorite covers. I'm saying all these are my favorite covers, but this seriously is. Look at that cover. Mr. Lucky was a TV show in the late 1950s. And here's another one. I think I bought these for about $3 or $4 in that neighborhood. Another Henry Mancini Charade soundtrack with Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn. There's the man himself. Let's skip a few of these here. Yeah, we all talk about, all you vinyl enthusiasts here, we're kind of record junkies, aren't we? The perfect record junkie record. Percussive jazz. Talk about the needle in our arms and how we get have this addiction of buying vinyl all the time and not fully satisfied half the time. I'm sure you're not all like that. Of course, I don't know all of you, but isn't that a great cover? David Rose and his orchestra. He got kind of fame in the 60s. If you remember the stripper song, that instrumental, The Stripper, was David Rose and his orchestra. It's not on this record, I don't believe, but I just thought that was a cool cover. It's almost like that Outer Limits, Twilight Zone thing. I love that. Here is another Les Baxter. My record's a little out of order here, and this, but again, a wonderful illustration, wonderful painting for the cover. Can you hear that? More Les Baxter. We're talking about sexy 60s covers there. And of course, the most infamous of the Martin Denny covers, Exotica. This album cover was parodied in the 80s with the industrial rock band Throbbing Gristle. They kind of did a version of this cover, their own version. Throbbing Gristle is an interesting industrial sort of punk, post-punk band you should check out. Great records. Or not great records if you're in the mood for it, to put it that way. But this is a great record. This should be in everybody's collection anyway, just for the cover. I think I have 3 copies of this, one framed in the other room. And then Martin Denny, The Enchanted Sea. These alluring, dark-haired island women. Aphrodisia. The exotic sounds of Martin Denny in Spectrasonic stereo. More Martin Denny. Just anything I get when I see his name, I'll pick it up. And I have no idea, I don't think I've ever listened to this, but Amor. Oh, Raymond Scott. Raymond Scott, okay. You all know Raymond Scott's music, even if you don't know his name. A lot of his music was used in the cartoon animated series Ren and Stimpy. Remember that in the 90s, Ren and Stimpy? A lot of that music, Raymond Scott had a sort of resurgence. Find his records, Raymond Scott's really kind of jazzy, poppy, frenetic stuff. Worth checking out, Raymond Scott. Also did a lot of electronic stuff, which is really out there. The Exotic Suite by Martin Denny. And look, it's got a piece of what the fuck is this? Of fabric. Martin Denny, Latin Village. Again, the covers I have to buy these. I'm addicted to this stuff. San Francisco Moods. I bought this record because I'm a native San Franciscan originally, and this was, he used to play at Vanessi's, and Vanessi's in Broadway in San Francisco was a restaurant, an old Italian restaurant, old school, that was one of my favorite places to go. Where all the strip joints were too in the 60s and 70s. In fact, on Broadway, topless dancing was invented, or at least first was done by Carol Doda at the Condor Club on Broadway in Columbus in San Francisco. Kind of diverge here. Maureen Almeida, a guitar player. The Maharaji Brass, feeling Chet Baker. Ooh. A taste of tequila. Forget honey, we're tasting tequila here. And then of course, any lounge music has to have a martini. I'm a big martini fan, so here's martini time. And if you don't know, I'm gonna do a little side note, a martini is only made with gin, if you want to call it a martini. Gin, martini, a little bit of vermouth, and an olive. If you want it vodka, you have to actually call it a vodka martini. If you want gin, you don't have to call it a gin martini. It should be that way. Of course, that's a traditional thing. Some new bartenders or mixologists don't get that. But anyway, cocktail time with Frankie Carl with a rhythm accompaniment. There you go, Frankie Carl. There you go. A lot of cleavage on these records. I hate to sound sexist, but that's just the nature of this kind of late 50s, 60s bachelor pad thing. It leads us to On the Rocks. Again, always a martini. Oh no, she's sitting in a cocktail. She's sitting in a, looks like it's not a martini. It's a tumbler, like a, you know, brown cocktail. What do you call it? Scotch. Scotch on the Rocks. Charlie's Penthouse Party Time, also in San Francisco. And this one is autographed. I don't know where I got this. I didn't get it autographed, I found it, but no one would fake this guy's autograph, so I'm sure that's real. I'm sure it adds another 3 cents to the sale price. Music, Martinis, and Memories. Jackie Gleason. Jackie Gleason, a lot of people don't know, was not just an actor and a comedian. Had a TV show, obviously, and had the Honeymooners back in the 50s. But he was a band leader, a really great band leader. Made some beautiful records. But look at this record. Look at his cover. But I love his record covers. He had a period of some really great stuff. Lazy, Lively, Love. Jackie Gleason movie themes. Riff Jazz, Jackie Gleason, great illustration. And also, not to be outdone, all those 60s straight people got on the Exotic bandwagon, and he got into some sitar. The sounds for today's lovers. So it's got a little Indian influence, obviously, since the Beatles and With and Without You got on that, and other 60s rock bands. Sitar music was everywhere in the record music industry then. You jump on the bandwagon, that's what you do. Another Exotic covers. Now this is friggin' amazing. Jackie Gleason had Salvador Dali, the great painter and artist, create this cover. Lonesome Echo, Salvador Dali. Surrealism at its finest. There's Jackie and Salvador Dali right there. Pick this up just for the cover. It's kind of a good record too. I mean, if you're in the mood for this kind of schmaltzy background music like this, you know, you get your girlfriend, your boyfriend over, dim the lights, make them a martini, say those words. I mean, you're record nerds. I don't know if you're into that stuff. I guess you would be. It's the Star Trek, Star Wars geeks that aren't into the sexual revolution. I kid. Wild stereo drums. If you don't know it, you should check out in the late 50s or in the 50s when stereo was happening. There was a series of records, they used to refer to them as ping pong records, showcasing left and right stereo separation, a lot of times with bongos and heavy percussive records. Enoch Light was the guy that did a lot of those. This is one of them. This isn't one of the original ones, but this is more the psychedelic period. This is later in the 60s. But Enoch Light records, I'm going to skip over some of these because I'm sure you've seen these records. They sound great if you can get them in good quality. Provocative percussion. I'll see the record ended, they're too short. Anyway, I'm going to go through these fast. I'm not going to change your record now, but look at these covers. Enoch Light, persuasive percussion. These were all on the Command label. Command Records was Enoch Light's label. And the art direction, Charles Murphy, did the covers on a lot of these records back in the 50s, early 60s. Really great records. Look at that. Amazing, amazing artwork. I just love this kind of pop art things. Anyway, I'm going to kind of wind down here since the music ended, and I don't feel like getting up and changing it. But you get the idea from all these percussion records. Command Records, Enoch Light records, worth checking out. They used to be really cheap. Some of the good covers, there's a few I'm still missing. I don't have to catalog to see which ones. But great covers. Anyway, Bachelor pad music, 50s, 60s album covers, lounge music, however you want to call it. Thanks again for checking me out. And if you want to make any comments or follow along, if you want to share some other or suggest some Bachelor pad originals that I missed, that I don't have, that I might stumble across. It's quite a few, I'm sure. But anyway, thanks again. Mazzy signing off.